And our New Testament reading is found in the book of James. We're final Thursday night. We'll be talking about James. James chapter 5, verses 7 to 12. Be patient, therefore, beloved, until the coming of the Lord. The farmer waits for the precious crop from the earth, being patient with it until it receives the early and late rains. You also must be patient. Strengthen your hearts, for the coming of the Lord is near. Beloved, do not grumble against one another, so that you may not be judged. See, the judge is standing at the doors. As an example of suffering and patience, beloved, take the prophets who spoke in the name of the Lord. Indeed, we call blessed those who showed endurance. You have heard of the endurance of Job, and you have seen the purpose of the Lord, how the Lord is compassionate and merciful. Above all, my beloved, do not swear, either by heaven or by earth or by any other oath, but let your yes be yes and your no be no, so that you may not fall under condemnation. Tonight we're preaching, and I should have changed the title of that. We're preaching on patience here. And of course, that's what James is talking about, being patient. I will point out that my wife would contend that I probably am preaching a sermon that I am woefully unprepared or unqualified to preach, because patience is not my long suit. I will really admit that. So I will start this sermon with a little story. I recently heard a story about a young couple that had 4 boys, and as they were getting ready to have their 5th child, that was going to be a girl, and they were trying to come up with a name for the girl, and as much as they tried and debated and thought and plotted and planned, they had no luck coming up with a name for the girl, and their family kept telling them, "Oh, just be patient, the name will come to you. You're patient, the name will come to you. Have patience, a name will come to you." And the family kept contending with them, and they finally were getting very tired of their family coming to them and telling them to be patient and to have patience. So they named the little girl Patience, so they could always say that they had patience with them. Now, I should have done that, shouldn't I? We should have named our little daughter Patience. However, she is not a patient child either, so that would have been a very bad name for her. But at any rate, it's a cute little story, and it's perhaps for many of us, that's about the only way we're really going to have true patience. But what James is getting at here is he's talking about, I think, a couple of things. First, we'll look at it as what he's looking at historically, and then, again, we'll try to apply it to our own lives and to look at it and to try to relate to what's going on here. He's talking about the second coming. James and Paul may disagree on a lot of things, but they both were of the mind, it seems, that the Lord's coming again soon. So be patient. The farmer waits for the precious crop from the earth. He's talking about the Lord coming again. He's talking about the second coming. And so he's telling us to, it seems like a long time. And for them, James died in 63. He's about 30 years after Jesus, that he was still preaching in the temple. So James is, even 30 years, they're getting weary. When is he coming? When is he coming? When is he coming? It's kind of like driving a car. The kids in the back seat. Are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we there yet? And patience is never our longest suit, and never has been. We're human beings. And so he's telling them, just wait. It's God's time. It's not our time. We don't look at it in our way. We don't approach it that way. Look to the prophets. They were suffering in the time when they were waiting. And of course, this is a time of Advent. This is a time of we're waiting. We're waiting for the coming of the Christ child. We're waiting for the second coming. It's all about waiting. So actually, this bit of James falling into Advent wasn't a bad thing at all. But so we're looking at that's what's going on. We are still waiting. We're in that in-between time when Jesus walked the earth and when is Jesus coming again. We're in that middle time is where we exist, and where so many, if not all, Christians to this date, other than the ones that were alive at the time of Christ and saw him walking the earth, they were in that middle time. And someday the time will end, but we don't know when. And so patience is all that we have. Waiting is all that we can do. Having faith is what we're called to. But how do we apply this to our daily life? Patience and being patient. He's saying, don't grumble against one another, be patient, and showing endurance in suffering. We look at our lives, None of us is isolated from suffering. None of us is immune to it. All of us in our lives have something that goes on. If it's nothing more than just aging. I just turned 60 in November, and I feel like, oh my gosh, so many things are starting to bother me. And so many things. It's like, oh my goodness. And I was talking to my mother today, who's 93, so she's kind of like, oh, that's cute, Roy. Let me tell you about this. So it's like, okay, I don't put it in perspective. But so we have chronic illnesses, many of us, things that we know are not going to get better, things that are only going to deteriorate. Where is our patience in that? How do we even have patience? We look to Roxy, who just went home, and we know that Roxy's home for now, but how long will she be home? We don't know. Roxy should always be an inspiration and a model to all of us of how to deal with, even for us that don't have a chronic disease such as MS. We all have the chronic disease of aging. Our eyesight's all getting weaker. I got new glasses this week because I had to go get new glasses. My glasses were getting too weak. My arthritis is starting to bother me more. All of these things. And so none of those things are going to go away. They're only going to get worse. It's only going to slowly until the time comes when I get to go to meet the Lord. Hey, praise God. So we all have to be patient. We all have suffering. There's none of us that gets away from that. And part of that suffering entails spiritual suffering, doesn't it? Because then we start going to question, why would God do this to me? Why would I have to suffer like this? Why? And so that's spiritual suffering. It's perpetuated by our physical suffering or emotional suffering as well. And so we have to fall back, and we need to look at James. We need to look at this and say, be patient. The Lord will come again. We may pass from this world and be with the Lord before he comes again. But hey, as I said, praise God. There's nothing wrong with that. As a Christian, that's what we're striving for. All of this will pass away. All of this suffering will pass away. None of this is permanent. And once we're there, then we do not have these bodies that age. We do not have these bodies that are infirm. We do not have any of this emotional strife that we have here. And so be patient. This too will pass. Dear Father, thank you so very much for the promise of the coming again of Christ. Forgive us when we're not as patient as James would call us to be. We are mere human beings, and it seems that patience is probably the shortest thing on our list of strengths. Lord, we just lift this all up to you and we ask for your blessing in spite of our failings. In your glory we pray.